Yes.
Until you came in this courtroom Friday, you never saw this woman in person, did you?
Correct.
And did you give her a hug? Oh no, you're on telemedicine, so you couldn't give her a hug, could you?
Or, until you came in this courtroom Friday, you never saw this woman in person, did you? The question hangs in the air for exactly 1 second before the answer comes back. Or, correct, 14 appointments, 14 clinical encounters, 0 physical examinations. Or, that is the exchange that turned a routine cross-examination into an indictment of an entire system of medicine. And here is the image that should stay with you. Or a doctor prescribing mind-altering medication to a woman she had never touched, never sat beside, never seen breathe in the same room. Or not once. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Beyond the Gavel File, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Dr. or Jennifer Tufts received her board certification in August 2022. She saw Lindsay Clancy for the first time on September 15th of that same year. That is roughly 4 weeks of independent practice, or 4 weeks. And yet the medical record lists her as a specialist in postpartum psychiatry. The defense attorney, Kevin Reddington, or pressed on this with the precision of a man dismantling a filing cabinet drawer by drawer.
So you were practicing as a psychiatrist for a little more than a month.
I was practicing independently with my full credentials for about a month, but the training is just immense that goes on before that.
Now, in August of 22, up until when you saw Lindsay, how many patients in that month or so had you treated for postpartum psychosis?
How many patients in a month? Up until that
Yeah,
month?
I'm asking you about when you started working in August of 22 for Astor, and you are now on your own as an employee. How many patients had you treated before you saw Lindsay Clancy for postpartum psychosis?
Well, in the span of 1 month, I would say none, because it's a very rare disorder.
Okay. But it exists, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And one of the things would be the voices that people hear, right?
That is a symptom of psychosis, absolutely.
And that's legitimate, isn't it?
It is a legitimate diagnosis,
It's
absolutely.
not the diagnosis. People that have postpartum psychosis hear voices, do they not?
Many do. The disorder can manifest differently in different people, but yes, many people do hear voices.
How about postpartum depression? How many people in that month or so before you met Lindsay did you treat for postpartum depression?
In the span of 1 month, it's really hard to pinpoint that. Maybe a couple.
Maybe a couple? And do you recall how long you treated them for?
Again, it's hard to really pin down the individuals in a short span of time.
Or, how many postpartum psychosis patients had she treated before Lindsay? None. How many postpartum depression patients? Maybe a couple. The words matter here because the civil lawsuit naming Dr. or Tufts as a defendant runs 784 pages long.
You're a defendant in a very large lawsuit, are you not?
Yes.
You wouldn't happen to be represented by an attorney, would you?
I am.
And the fact that you have an attorney is your right under the Constitution. It doesn't mean that you're guilty of anything, right?
Right.
Okay. And you know that the outcome of this case is very, very major to the outcome of your lawsuit. Is that right? Oh.
I don't actually know that.
So you understand that if, in fact, it's determined that you advertise as an expert in postpartum and in postpartum psychiatry, and you've had a month experience plus a residency, would you consider that to be negligent or misrepresentation?
Or that document alleges medical malpractice. The doctor's response from the stand was 5 words: "I do not believe that I have been negligent." But the paper trail tells a different story. Or on December 1st, Lindsay reported she was close to suicidal ideation. She said she felt hopeless. She said she could not sleep. She said she felt like she was going to die, and the clinical response was not an emergency visit. It was not an in-person evaluation. It was another box checked on a telehealth screen.
When Lindsay expressed suicidal ideations, Dr. Tufts testified she still didn't recommend seeing Lindsay in person.
And on December 1st is when she told you, again, that she was close to having suicidal ideation, feeling hopeless. You recall that?
Yes.
Now, on the interval history, on that date, you indicated that she can't sleep, she's panicking, she had worse depression, intrusive thoughts, she was numb, nothing mattered, I feel like I'm going to die, denies suicidal ideation, but, quote, yesterday, close to it, feeling hopeless. Did you give her therapy and validations after she told you that?
I believe that I did.
What did you do? You got a woman that's telling you that she's hopeless. She doesn't care if she dies. Can't sleep. What did you do to validate on your therapy?
Well, I told her that this was something that we could address, that there was hope, that there were treatments, and there are different types of treatment programs that are more supportive, like partial hospitalization programs. So she knew that she still had options and a reason to hope.
Did you ever suggest to her that maybe you ought to come in and see me rather than talk on the computer?
Talking with her over the video did not seem like an issue. It didn't seem like there was anything that I was missing or that there was any need to see her in person.
Or the defense forced the doctor to read her own notes back. No sleep last night, falls asleep after 40 minutes, heart racing, severe anxiety, worrying about kids' baby sleep, yawns, but not drowsy, not hyper-pressured speech. Then the pause. The doctor insisted the word not belonged before pressured speech. The record did not show that. Or her response was immediate and defensive. I don't care what it says. I know what I meant. That is the gap between what was officially documented and what actually happened. Or that gap is the whole case.
No sleep last night, falls asleep after 40 minutes, heart racing, severe anxiety, worrying about kids, baby, sleep, yawns but not drowsy, not hyper pressured speech.
What was that? Not hyper what?
Not hyper, not pressured speech is what I meant. I know it doesn't say not, but that is exactly what I meant.
When did you see this that you noticed that it did not say not?
I don't care what it says. I know what I meant.
Well, when you wrote this, you did not say not pressured speech. You said in the medical record, pressured speech, right?
No.
Does it say that?
Yeah, the word is the word not is right before not hyper, comma, pressured speech.
Right,
The two
so what
are
does
following
a
the
comma mean
not.
to you? When you put down in a medical record, heart racing, comma, severe anxiety, comma, worried about kids, comma, baby, comma, sleep, comma, yawns but not drowsy, period. Not hyper, comma, pressured speech. That's what you wrote, right?
She did not have
Did you
pressured
write
speech.
that, doctor?
I wrote that, but you're misinterpreting my note.
Am I reading this correctly, and the jury will be able to look at it, that you put not hyper, comma, pressured speech? Did I read that right?
Or, the moral refrain throughout this testimony is simple: the standard of care is not a technicality. The standard of care is not a technicality. Or we will come back to that. The medications prescribed tell another layer of the story. Zoloft carries a black box warning from the FDA for suicidal ideation, and in rare cases, or homicidal ideation in younger adults. The defense asked whether she warned Lindsay about the severe trouble sleeping side effect. The answer shifted 3 times. First it was yes, or then it was not in those exact words, then it was that most patients do not experience it severely. By the third answer, or the jury had heard 3 different versions of the same clinical obligation.
It was Dr. Tufts who prescribed Lindsay the medication Zoloft in fall of 2022.
Suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation. There's a black box warning, Zoloft, along with other SSRIs, right?
Under
Yes
age,
or no?
for children and adults younger than Lindsay.
Excuse me, doctor, I apologize. Can you just listen to my question and answer it yes or no? Is there a black box warning on Zoloft?
Yes,
Okay. And a black box warning is required or prescribed by what, the FDA?
probably.
Probably. And it basically warns that, especially with young people or young adults, that it may cause suicidal or, God forbid, homicidal ideation. Yes?
Yes.
And things are getting tense. Dr. Tufts and Kevin Reddington, the defense attorney, talk over each other as the cross-exam goes on.
Now, when you were going over the symptomology or when you were going over the side effects of Zoloft, one of the side effects of Zoloft is, and I quote, severe trouble sleeping, right?
Yes.
Did you tell her that?
Well, insomnia is listed as a side effect.
No. You already said yes, you know it. Did you tell her that Zoloft has a side effect of giving the patient severe trouble sleeping? That's all.
So I didn't use the word severe because it typically doesn't cause severe trouble sleeping, but I thought you were referring to when she told me that she did have severe trouble sleeping,
Well,
and that
that's
was
what
true.
she told you, right? That she had severe trouble sleeping, right?
She told me, yes.
And you know that one of the side effects of Zoloft is, let's say, trouble sleeping. You know that, right?
Yes.
Your answer is yes. The jury has to be able to hear you.
Yes.
And why would you prescribe Zoloft to a young woman who's postpartum, who's coming to you with anxiety, who's telling you she can't sleep, she's got all of these symptoms, and you prescribe a medication that would have a side effect of trouble sleeping?
So individuals have very varied responses to medications. Some have no side effects, some have one or two. It's impossible to predict, but Zoloft is a top choice, a first-line medication for
Says
her.
who?
It was
Says who?
says it's the general consensus
Right, know
among
about the lawsuits
psychiatrists.
against
Hold on,
Zoloft,
again,
right?
again, you can't have both of you talking at the same time. So let her finish her answer, and then I'll give you plenty of time to follow up any questions regarding her answer. So, you finish your answer on that?
There's extensive research supporting the use of sertraline in this instance, and the general consensus among psychiatrists is that it's a first-line safe medication for individuals, including postpartum women.
Reddington pokes holes in Dr. Tufts' notes, insinuating that she, perhaps, didn't take them carefully enough.
Did she tell you what the side effects were after she had gossip?
She did. I did not list them because,
Excuse me, that means you didn't write it down?
yes,
So what is it, your memory that we'll go by that, right?
sorry,
We'll go by your memory?
go by my memory about what? I don't recall exactly which side effects she said, but I recall that they were some of the very common ones, the ones that are temporary.
Hold on. You're telling this jury that you don't recall what the side effects were that she told you, but your memory is that they were general, common? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because if they were anything else, I would have documented it.
Or Reddington's follow-up was almost quiet. You're a doctor. Why are you limited? The doctor blamed the technology. The form
We do
fields
with patients.
The defense pointed to Dr. Tufts' use of the word deteriorating when describing Lindsay's condition as the treatments went on.
She was a little bit worse at certain appointments, and the deteriorating word, which is not my word choice, is what is in the note because I had to select that.
Because why? You have some kind of a program that you have to check the box and you have to bring down the drop box? You can't take a pen and write something down about a patient?
There are certain parts of the note where I can write whatever I feel is necessary, but that specific aspect of the note is a button where you have to click one of 3 choices. I didn't say she was terribly depressed in that initial visit, but she said she was anxious and she appeared anxious. That's pretty congruent.
Okay. So did you put in the report that she was congruent or incongruent?
So that is not an option for me to indicate in that section, but
So-
it was congruent.
You're like a robot. You can't take a pen and write something down. You have to do the drop box and the X's on the computer.
Well, if it's on the computer, I'm limited by the options that are up there
You're a doctor. Why are you limited?
because of the technology.
What technology? The fact that there's a form on a computer? You're trying to treat a human being who comes to you for help.
And that's what's most important. What's most important was the treatment, not what is checked off on a box.
Or on the computer, the drop-down menus. She said she could not write free-form notes in certain sections. The defense attorney's response reduced the room to silence. Or you're trying to treat a human being who comes to you for help. And here is the ticking clock question that reframes this entire story. Or, if a patient reports suicidal thoughts on a video screen and the doctor checks a box and the patient later commits an irreversible act, or how many steps are between that check box and the autopsy table? Not philosophical steps.
Heal those cells. Did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of professional certainty, to medical certainty, as the cause of death of Cora?
Yes,
And what was that?
asphyxia.
And was that by manual strangulation?
By
Or real observable, documentable steps. Because every missed warning sign becomes a line in a court transcript. Or every telehealth appointment becomes a link in a chain that ends in a medical examiner's testimony.
How long, based on your training and experience, does it take for a brain to start dying after the loss of blood flow and oxygen?
It varies based on different sources. Most sources say it's between about 6 to 8 minutes. If there is no oxygen flow, then the brain will essentially start dying. It depends on, if there's resuscitation that occurs afterwards, but it's generally in the frame of 6 to 8 minutes or so.
And once brain tissue dies, it can't be brought back, correct?
Correct, yes.
Or the third act of this cross-examination turned to the lack of physical presence itself. Lindsay had 3 children. She reported anxiety, depression, intrusive thoughts. She was crying on camera. Or the defense asked if the doctor ever hugged her patient. The answer was no, and then the qualification psychiatrists do not typically hug patients. But the point was never about hugging. It was about presence. It was about whether a doctor treating a woman in crisis has a duty to be in the same physical space at least once. 14 appointments by telemedicine, 0 in person. Or that is not a medical model. That's a screen-based triage system wearing a white coat.
Yes.
Until you came in this courtroom Friday, you never saw this woman in person, did you?
Correct.
Were you ever concerned about her mental health as a person?
Absolutely.
She was crying. She told you symptoms that she couldn't get out of bed. Isn't that right?
At one time she said it was difficult to get out of bed
Oh, difficult to get out. Why was it difficult for Lindsay Clancy to get out of bed?
because she was very depressed.
And did you give her a hug? Oh, no, you're on telemedicine, so you couldn't give her a hug, could you? You didn't have any chance to even look at her in person, did you?
I could look at her. It was always a video appointment. I couldn't give her a hug, but that's not actually something that psychiatrists typically do with patients.
Or now consider what came next in this trial. Or a social worker with 8 years of experience on the exact inpatient unit where Lindsay was briefly admitted posted a TikTok video correcting the prosecution's narrative. Or she said patients do not see a licensed physician every single day. She said holidays and weekends mean a single doctor covers more than 20 patients. Or she said the staffing levels described in court did not match reality. And the defense tracked her down with a private investigator and moved to call her as a witness. The Commonwealth objected, or claiming she had been following the trial and could be biased. But the core of her testimony remains a matter of public record in the defense motion. Or the care described at McLean Hospital was not the care that actually existed.
Your Honor, basically, as the motion speaks for itself, there is a woman, her name is Emily Thorndike, who's a LACSW here in Massachusetts. She owns and is an independent operator of her own clinical social work establishment called Wise Mind Therapy.
That's this woman who made a TikTok a few weeks back. She used to work at McLean, the medical facility Lindsay Clancy stayed at in late 2022 and early 2023.
When a patient is admitted to the unit, they are specifically assigned two clinicians. One is a psychiatrist, and the second is the social worker. You are literally told as a patient, this is your treatment team. This is your doctor. This is your social worker. With that being said, legally, every patient needs to be seen at least once a day by a doctor. So on the weekends and on the holidays, when the physicians in charge, the regular physicians who are working there, are off because they work weekday hours, on the weekends and on holidays, the patients still need to be seen by a doctor. How that works is that there is one doctor who comes on the weekend and holidays, and he or she sees every single patient on the unit, okay? And if you think about it, there's a reason that the doctors who are there during the week are only assigned 4 to 5 patients, because you cannot spend a long amount of time as a doctor with 23 different patients.
Last week, the defense made it known they want to call Emily as a witness. Their motion reads in part, Ms. Thorndike literally worked the unit that Lindsay Clancy was presented to on New Year's 2022-2023. Ms. Thorndike would testify based solely upon her firsthand observations and 8 years of experience while employed at McLean Hospital's short-term unit between 2014 and 2021.
She left, as the court is aware from the motion. I vetted her out. I obviously would be concerned if there's any so-called axe to grind, if you will, any lawsuits pending. Were you fired? Did you have any difficulties? Any claims for harassment, hostile workplace? Absolutely nothing. She has friends that are still employees that still work at McLean. And I do not know this woman. I have literally never met her. Her involvement in this case came about after one of the prosecutors, I don't recall which, made it out on direct examination that McLean is some kind of a 5-star institution where the doctors, the psychiatrists, the psychotherapists, the counselors were all banging into each other in the hallway trying to interview Ms. Clancy, who was just blithely refusing care and treatment, which is not the case.
The Commonwealth had some reservations about this potential witness.
Aside from that, we have a number of other issues with this witness. One is this isn't somebody that's proposed to be an expert, so they're not relieved, they wouldn't be relieved of a sequestration order. But this woman's TikTok, admittedly, she's been following the trial. She goes on for several minutes in a very long TikTok video where she identifies what she thinks are lies based on her observations of Patrick Clancy's testimony. We have no idea what her thoughts are or what her comments are on the rest of the trial that we assume she's watched based on her comments in this particular video. That she outlines in this video her experiences at McLean and her observations and how they are different from what was portrayed in that particular witness's testimony.
Or that brings us back to the moral refrain. The standard of care is not a technicality. The medical examiner in this case testified that once brain tissue dies from oxygen deprivation, or it cannot be brought back, 6 to 8 minutes without intervention and the damage is permanent. That testimony is specific to the autopsy findings, but the broader implication hangs over this entire proceeding. How much damage is done in 6 to 8 minutes of silence? Or how much damage is done in 6 to 8 weeks of telehealth appointments that never once put a physician's hand on a patient's shoulder or a physician's eyes on a patient's full physical presentation? Or the records show Dr. Tufts never saw Lindsay Clancy in person until she walked into that courtroom on Friday. That is not a defense argument. That is stipulated testimony.
And did you perform an autopsy on Cora Clancy on January 25th, 2023?
Yes.
And did you follow that same process with Cora Clancy?
Yes. And then I noted evidence of trauma of the neck with associated injuries of her head and minor injuries of her right arm and of her legs as well.
And in terms of the the injuries that you observed, evidence of trauma to her neck, were there also injuries to her face and neck area that seemed to go along with the trauma to her neck?
Yes, there were findings of the head that were associated with the trauma of the neck.
And what were those?
So on her neck, she had a ligature furrow.
As the testimony continues, you can literally hear Lindsay breaking down.
So again, the furrow is a ligature is when you have external compression by an object on the neck, and a furrow is simply a pattern of injury that occurs beneath it. It can be an imprint, it could be a pattern, or it could be more developed types of injuries such as bruising or abrasions.
And what about injuries?
You can actually hear Lindsay crying, saying, "I can't do it."
What about injuries?
The judge even notices this and calls for a break.
Or the civil lawsuit is public record. 780, 4 pages of allegations that the clinical course was complicated by polypharmacy and multiple prescribers, or obscuring an accurate diagnosis. The lawsuit says Lindsay did everything she could to obtain appropriate treatment. The criminal defense says the same thing, or the Commonwealth says the medical care is not on trial. But the transcripts from this week say otherwise. Or they show a doctor who prescribed potent medication without a single physical examination. They show a doctor who could not recall side effects she documented or failed to document. Or they show a doctor who blamed dropdown menace for the limits of her clinical judgment. And so the question for you is not whether Lindsay Clancy was in psychosis on January 24th of 2023.
During all of this, breaking down in court, I think she said something like, "I just can't do it." And the judge said, "Okay, hold on. We have to, everyone go your separate ways for just a quiet little recess." And she was crying and breaking down. What was your reaction to that?
It was super sad. I mean, and I think that the internet is saying that they're thinking that that was a really, honest show of emotion from Lindsay. But I think it also shows the jury who is seeing all of this that she does have emotions about it. She's not sitting there stone cold, not emotionless. She has a lot of emotions about this, to the point where I believe Renee Stonebridge was testifying. Stonebridge, and she broke down. That is when the judge called for the recess, the break. And then Dr. Olson came on, broke down again, and she broke down 3 separate times. And it seemed like genuine, I cannot do this.
Or the question is whether the system that was supposed to catch a breaking mind was ever actually watching in the first place.
Trailing off of this, but when Lindsay called the crisis hotline, that Letitia Dukes, one of the testimonies from yesterday that they gave her in case she started feeling suicidal, and she called it, and they turned her away because she did not have a, quote, plan. So they could not help her, and then they didn't give her any other resources to go to. I mean, what are we doing here?
That little part, truly, I was just shocked by it. But full disclosure here, in the past when I've gone to the doctor, I will never forget this. I said to the doctor, "I'm struggling." And she's like, "Are you suicidal?" And I was like, "Yes." And she said, "Okay, there is a 5 to 7 month waiting list." And I was like,
"What?"
Okay. And so to hear that in this case, I mean, I'm just saying this to say there clearly is a problem going on in the mental health system. There truly is. And that is so stark and just chilling. So if any of the jurors,
Or now go find the motion filed by Kevin Reddington regarding the TikTok witness. It is in the public docket for the Clancy case in Plymouth County. Or read the section where the social worker describes weekend staffing at McLean. Then ask yourself one direct question in the comments. Or if the prosecution misrepresented inpatient care to the jury once, what else in their timeline should not be taken at face value?
And I didn't expect a TikToker to come to the forefront here in this case. Kevin Reddington himself hoping to call a TikToker to testify. Obviously, this is someone who worked there at McLean before Lindsay Clancy was there. But is that something you expected? I mean, has anyone ever reached out to you as part of the case?
I've never been reached out to as part of a case, but she had kind of a firsthand, experience working 8 years at McLean Hospital. It was TikToker who goes by the username EmilyT_therapy, and she was a Massachusetts social worker for 8 years. And she is saying that the prosecution is misrepresenting what it is like to stay at McLean Hospital for mental health. She claims that the prosecution's spreading misinformation about what it's truly like there, and even how, and I thought this was such a great point and not something I thought about, how staying there during a holiday can impact your care as well. Because Lindsay went to the emergency room on December 31st, was transferred to McLean on New Year's Day. And she said around a holiday, a lot of these, social workers, doctors, people take off, and then you see different providers. So you're not getting that same level of care. So the prosecution is trying to make it seem like Lindsay refused groups, she refused therapies, she saw a doctor every single day. And this TikToker said, no, she wasn't seeing doctors every single day. She was seeing some type of healthcare worker that is not licensed in therapy or licensed to help her. And the prosecution, in her opinion, is misrepresenting what Lindsay truly experienced at McLean. Kevin Reddington.
Or, the standard of care is not a technicality. If you want more coverage of this trial and the civil case behind it, like this video. Or, share it with someone who still thinks telehealth is a substitute for examination, and subscribe to Beyond the Gavel file with notifications on. We will be here when the next witness steps up.